Once I had no more than some yellowed photos in a cardboard box and some stories about members of my family who emigrated to America. My grandpa, Johann Schwitter, who told these stories, died when I was 9 years old. There was a couple of pictures of the American Schwitters in the box. The photos was made in the photo studios Pfaff and Sonnenberg in Allegheny and Morris in Pittsburgh. I had no impression who these persons was nor where this Allegheny is. The last years I researched about my different family branches but also the Schwitters in America. I wanted to know how they are related to my grandpa. What I found was the story of a great man. Today I want to tell the few I know about him. Balthasar Joseph Schwitter was born on the 3rd March of 1847 in the small town Enfels in the canton of Glarus in Switzerland. At the time of his birth, Enfels had about 2,000 citizens. Opposite to today, there was a big poverty in Switzerland, and especially in the canton of Glarus. For many people, the only solution for a better life was to emigrate. On 1845, a group of 150 emigrants founded New Glarus in the state of Wisconsin. But the big emigration wave was between 1860 and 1910. But back to Balthasar Joseph. His parents were Fridolin Joseph Anton Schwitter and Louise Carolina Schwitter. He had at least 10 siblings. On the 27th August 1848, his brother Joseph was born. This is the first of his siblings who went to America too. A year later, his sister Marianna was born but died in the same year. Child mortality was very high in this time due to poverty and underdeveloped medical services. The next sister, Louisa Carolina, survived. She was born on the 26th May of 1850. Later she also left Switzerland. The next 3 siblings didn't emigrate. Franz Joseph was born 1851 but died young in the age of 22. A year later, Barbara was born. She kept in Enfels till her death in 1800 and 1890. Katharina, born in 1854, died in the same year. In 1856, Ferdinand was born, followed 2 years later by Isidor. Both emigrated to the USA later, but information about them is very poor. There was 2 additional siblings, Christina and Maria Josepha, but Christina died in the year of birth 1860, and Maria Josepha, who was born 1862, died in the age of 1 year. This is all I know about the family at time. Balthasar Joseph learned the profession of a silk colorer. This was a typical job in this time because there was a big amount of textile industry in the canton of Glarus. Frederick worked 5 years long to earn the money to pay his passage to America from the age of 13 on. The law of 1846 prohibited work in textile factories for children under 13 years. 2 years later, the law was expanded to all types of industry. Working on Sunday was prohibited in 1858. Even this, when Balthasar Joseph started work, conditions wasn't comfortable. A night shift had the maximal length of 11 hours, a day shift 13 hours, and a normal day work 14 hours. 1864, the daily work time was reduced to maximal 12 hours, and night work was prohibited. 2 years later, Balthasar Joseph had saved up the money and left Switzerland. Another important factor was the religion. The Schwitter family was very Catholic, and especially Balthasar Joseph was a very pious Christian. Enfels was one of the few villages in Glarus where the Catholics was able to keep power. Most parts of the canton are Protestant. In this time, this was a reason for many conflicts. The life of Balthasar Joseph was characterized by work, church, and family. No doubt there was no place for free time. But he had a goal, to find a better life in a new world. In the 19th century, this was managed by emigration agencies. In the age of 18 years, Balthasar Joseph left Enfels. It's not notified how he reached the next known station, the city of Le Havre in the Normandy in France. I found out that it was possible to do this way by the railway at this time, but it's not sure he did it in this way. Railway was young in Switzerland, they came late. Due to the early industrialization, the canton of Glarus was connected 1859 to the tracknet. It was possible to reach Basel, where the French railway was connected to. In this time, trains operated by steam locomotives like the Chaude. If you was not part of the nobility seats, if existent, was hard. However, he reached Le Havre, one of the depart harbors for emigrants. Such towns have been full of waiting emigrants, and a big amount of ships waited to cross over the ocean. The ship Balthasar Joseph took was the Frothingham, an American packet ship built in 1861. He traveled, like the most emigrants, in the steerage. The Frothingham was 54 meter in length, 11 meter broad, and 7 meter in depth, and had 3 masts. The capacity of the Frothingham was at least 269 passengers. The passage endured between 35 and 45 days. According to lists, the Frothingham departed Havre on Sunday, the 15th July 1866. During the passage, the passengers slept and cooked in the steerage. The passage has two notices. On the 25th July, the 10th day of travel, they saw a devastated ship. On Sunday, the 12th August, they crossed the banks. Finally, the ship arrived in New York on the 26th August under Captain Quayle and with 160 passengers to Boyd Hinken. They was 42 days on board. Now he was in New York. At this time the highest building was Church's, and the Statue of Liberty was not yet built or planned. The traffic was just high, but only horse-drawn coaches was on the way. I don't know why, but Balthasar Joseph changed his name to Frederick. Maybe this sounds better in English, or he took a variant of the name of his father. The further travel is unknown, but America had excellent rail connections in this time. But fact is, he finally arrived the county of Allegheny, home, and penniless. For first he worked some years for a farmer lorry's run. In the next year his brother Joseph reached America with the Columbia, but he has chosen a place in Palestine, Texas. Later Frederick was employed as a servant by James Andrews in Nunnery Hill. His salary was $6 per month, what would be about $110 today. In 1871 he bought some cows and founded his dairy. He sold the milk with a two-wheeled cart. The business flourished, and so he refused the offer of Mr. Andrews to return to him for a salary of $40 per month. The next year he saved enough money for his next project. On the 26th October 1876, Joseph married Elizabeth Portwood. He left the Catholic Church. Even Frederick often tried to convince him to return to the Catholic confession, but he wasn't successful. Joseph and Elizabeth had at least 7 children. Joseph died on the 19th November 1936. On the 26th October 1877, Frederick Schwitter immigrated the USA. He came with a ship called Friends, but I've no more information about his further life. Another sibling, Louise Schwitter, came to America too, but I've no information about her passage. Before 1878 she married Frank Daffner, maybe because she was pregnant. She gave birth of Mary Ann on the 8th March of 1878. She had at least 10 children, but one of them died in the age of 1 year, another was born deaf. They lived in the state of Ohio. Louisa Carolina Daffner passed away on 25 January 1929. On the 26th October 1879, Frederick's young brother Ferdinand arrived in New York with the Amerique. In the census of the next year he was part of the household of Frederick. Other members of the household have been his wife. 4 more people, not of his family, lived in his household. Jost Jenny, Leons Hofstetter and Frederick Nibile came from Switzerland. The 50 years old Mary Fritsch came from France. The further destiny of Ferdinand is unknown. I'm sad to be unable to say when Frederick got to know Mary Werrell. It's only fixed that they married before the census. Mary Werrell was born in Allegheny in 1852 as daughter of the immigrant Francis J. Werrell from Baden in Germany. 1881 was a milestone for Frederick. He purchased Old Morrow Homestead, the location he rented since some years. Now he was owner of 75 acres of land and between 60 and 85 cows. He gave his dairy farm the name Sweet Home, and in the next years he modernized the farm. In this way Frederick fulfilled his American dream. In March 1882 his first daughter Mary was born. There are rumors that the children of Frederick are from other women and finally adopted, but Frederick himself should be the biological father. It's hard to imagine this by knowing his strong Catholic confession. Doubtless was the success of his enterprise. This allowed him to visit Europe in 1886. Mary, 4 years old in this time, was left home. I think they visited Enfels and maybe Baden where the family of Mary came from. They returned with the paddle steamer Normandy, a typical vessel of this time. I think the arrival in New York was interesting. Maybe, if they returned later this year, they have been able to see the new Statue of Liberty in a golden shine. Another mystery, this time from my side, is the anonymous son of Frederick I have on a photo. Maybe he was born around 1890 but died young. I don't know. Another loss came 1896, when his father passed away. In the same year, his second daughter, Annie Mary, was born on the 26th July. For the rest of the century I've no information. On the 31st October 1900, Frederick's daughter Mary married Eugene Graf, a son of another immigrant from Switzerland. She was pregnant in this time, and in the 15th March 1901 she has born Marie Magdalene. Frederick was first-time grandpa in the age of 53. Mary Graf has borne more children, 1902 Louise, and on the 28th August of 1905 Eugene John. 1906 Frederick, his wife and Annie visited Europe. This time he was definitely in Enfels, where he bought back his parental homestead. There exist rumors that he built a noble house there, but I don't know such things. They returned with the Kaiser Wilhelm der Zweite, a steamship with 4 chimneys and a comfort comparable to the Titanic. They arrived in New York on the 9th November 1906. Once more Frederick got grandfather on 24th November of 1907. His daughter Mary has borne Fredolin Casper. He is the last grandchild he was aware in his lifetime. Later Mary gave birth to 6 more children and passed away in 1960. In the next year he entertained the senator, prevented presidential candidate and later Secretary of State under President Howard Taft, Philander C. Knox, and his family in his homestead before their journey to Switzerland later this year. This was the last highlight of his life. Frederick got sick and decided to return to Switzerland in hope to recover there. On the 27th December he left the United States for a last time in direction of his birthplace. He didn't recover there and passed away on the 15th March of 1909. I've no information about his burial, thinking he was buried in Enfels, but there's no information. His wife and daughters decided to sell his property in Enfels. On the 10th November of 1911, Annie gave birth to Louis Joseph. She was very young, only 14 years old when she got pregnant. About 1 month later, on the 15th December of 1911, she married the father of the child, Louis William Seethler. Later they had 2 more sons. Annie died on the 13th April of 1990. Frederick's wife, Mary Schwitter, died in 1923. Mary Graf lived till 1960. His property in Westview, the Sweet Home Farm, was sold to build a resident zone. Frederick himself gave land and spent money for the building of the St. Athanasius Church. To his honor, one of the roads in his former property is called Schwitter Avenue. But the most important legacy are his descendants, and I think there live many of them today. The last question is, how I am related to Frederick Schwitter. My grandfather Johann was born in 1898. He was 8 years old when Frederick visited Enfels the second time, and 11 years old when he died in Enfels. I'm convinced he witnessed Frederick himself. Frederick was the cousin of his grandfather Fridolin Joseph Schwitter. I'm convinced there exist more stories about Frederick Schwitter. If you have one, please contact me.